Hello, my name is Bella Copeland and I'm the Program Delivery Manager at HOST, Salford's home of skills and technology, operated by Infor Group. HOST is an innovation hub here at the heart of Media City on a mission to break the barriers to entry into the tech sector, enabling businesses of all sizes to scale up and driving economic growth by creating an inclusive innovation community. I'm very excited to be here today hosting today's panel talking about the Salford Innovation Triangle and how it's creating an inclusive economy that's powered by innovation. Today on our panel, we are lucky to be joined by Professor Helen Marshall from the Vice Chancellor of the University of Salford, Tom Stannard, the Chief Exec of Salford City Council, Raj Jain, Chief Exec of the Northern Care Alliance, and Stephen Wild, Managing Director here at MediaCityUK. Today's panel is coming at you live from MediaCityUK, which means that you at home or wherever it is that you are joining from can participate. So feel free to log on via the app or on the website and send your questions in, and we'll be able to build those into today's discussion. In terms of today's order of events, we're going to be starting with a brief overview of what is the Salford Innovation Triangle from Tom, before we pose some questions to the rest of our panelists. As we've said, you at home can participate, and we'll work those questions in towards the end of our session. So let's get started. We're first going to start over with Tom and to get a bit of an overview with our very first question, which is, what is the Salford Innovation Triangle?
Thanks, Bella, and it's great to be here today with such a great panel of colleagues who've been part of my welcome to the City Council over the last few months. I think probably first and foremost it's important to say the Innovation Triangle is not us sitting here in these chairs today. It is the community, it is the economy that represents both the geography of the triangle with the three key anchor institutions plus the City Council represented here today. And it is above all about the vibrancy and both the predictable, I think, and the unpredictable sides of what innovation actually represents for the economies of the future. And I think what's been great about the story of Salford and of the Innovation Triangle over the last number of years is very much that it is, in my view, already a very strong success story. It's already home to 75,000 or so jobs. 60,000 people live in and around the area, and that's been a plus 8 to 10,000 population growth in the last 5 years or so alone. There's 5,000 companies, and we've added many thousands over the same kind of period. And I think that represents really both the investment destination attractiveness. It also represents the livability of the area, which is something we're always looking to improve. But fundamentally, it represents an area that's got all of the ingredients for innovation and for business and company growth. And I think what we're seeing here as part of the Digital City Festival this year is a really positive move, I think, for putting the Innovation Triangle here in Salford right at the heart of the GM growth and recovery plans and as part of the innovation GM approach overall. So there's a lot more in the pipelines for that. There's more growth to come. I think we can be reasonably confident as we are as partners about the prospects for that growth and investment for the long run. We know that there are big plans at the hospital, which Raj is overseeing. There are major plans we're bringing forward for new development here at Media City in the Keys. And I think the Crescent master plan at the university tells its own story, really. The most important thing for me is we've got to make sure that is inclusive growth, and that's really what the session is about today. And for me, that's about the connection of real people to those opportunities. And opportunity, I think, Bella, is the key word for this, and perhaps the note to finish on, that without making the opportunities reach all the residents of the city, and that's skills programs, it's all of the accelerator work we're doing through HOST with you and with Infor. We're not really going to turn the corner on that true inclusive economy, which is a massive opportunity for the Innovation Triangle and for innovation in GM generally. So very much looking forward to being part of the discussion this afternoon and to being part of what I think is a great leadership team for a great programme here in Salford.
Absolutely, great. Thank you so much for that, and really useful, I think, for everyone at home to understand that exactly it's more than just us here today, and actually that's what makes it so exciting. It's everything that comes together that becomes greater than the sum of its parts, really, which is something we can all be really excited about. So I'll just stick with yourself, Tom. You touched upon inclusive growth, and absolutely, it's on our board here. It's so important. You've recently launched, or Salford City Council has recently launched the Salford Way, which is a range of initiatives that are aimed at creating a fairer, a greener, and healthier Salford. can you elaborate on how the Salford Innovation Triangle is actually going to contribute on that Salford way and drive that inclusive economy that perhaps people might not necessarily see how that fits within something that we're talking about here today?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Salford Way is very much an approach to how we're looking to take forward that inclusive economy strategy overall. And I'll come back to what I said in the intro, really, Bella, which is opportunity is the key word in that. When we look at the volume of employment representation across the Innovation Triangle at the moment, 75,000 or so jobs, as I mentioned at the start, but that's grown by about 15 to 20,000 over the last 5 years alone. And what's really important to us in the Salford Way approach is going to be expanding opportunities for both young people and for adults in the existing labour market here in the city of Salford, more widely across GM and across the innovation economy of the north of England to access those future jobs and growth opportunities. And for us at the City Council, that's about two things working in tandem, really. One is all of the work that we do with partners here and with the investor economy to bring those new jobs into the area. But the second and the very important ingredient is about skills, learning, training, and crucially for adults as well as young people, retraining opportunities. I mentioned at the start that innovation is partly predictable, but a very, very important and a key principle of it is it's also unknown and very unpredictable. And a lot of those jobs of the future, the requirements, the employer requirements for the creative economy of the future are as yet unknown. And we've got to equip people for that world. It's partly, but not exclusively, about young people coming into the world of work for the first time. So all of our work in and around Host and around the other programs we're looking to launch later in the year for adult reskilling in particular are going to be really important to help us to really connect those communities across Salford and beyond to the jobs and innovation opportunities of the future here.
Absolutely. Well, and it couldn't be more important, looking at the economy and where we're going to give people that opportunity to expand into new industries and areas. So thank you for that. Raj, we'll come over to you if that's all right. So the Northern Care Alliance has been recognised across the UK as forward-thinking, in the space of innovation and using technology and data and different tools in how we rethink how health and care is delivered. So an example being the Digital Control Centre. How has this been able to be achieved? And actually, how do you think that the Salford Innovation Triangle in itself will continue to support this new way of thinking and of working into the future?
Thanks, Bella. Do a bit of a history tour, and I'll go to some specifics, because the history actually is really quite important, and it's important to the Innovation Triangle. So specifically about health, back in 2002 and 3, a group of us recognised that Salford had some assets that we thought we could do more with. We were working together with partners to understand how we could address some of the fundamental ill health drivers with our populations. And what we recognised was that whilst we all needed a fantastic hospital, we needed to do better to make sure that our care wasn't fragmented, it wasn't the experience that our patients and our citizens needed to have or wanted to have when we looked at care right across the community. And at that time, digital and specifically data started to come to the fore, and the availability of data started to come to the fore for health. And in the NHS, the zeitgeist was very much looking at hospitals and creating sets of data for hospitals to drive clinical care within the four walls of that hospital. And there was a big national programme that was driving us that way. However, we had some really forward-thinking, innovative clinicians who understood that for at least a large number of our patients, the four walls of the care for patients didn't stop within the four walls of the hospital. They actually went home, and we needed to support them at home in the community with our GP and primary care colleagues. And we started to develop linked data sets between primary care and the hospital so that we could follow the patient with that information, so that the patient knew what was going on and the staff around them could deliver the best possible care based on that data. So from that relatively small genesis, which was in diabetes care, we saw things happen that we thought, crikey, this is probably what care is going to look like in decades to come. The history lesson is that We just stayed with that concept. We understood the importance of data, the importance of integration, the importance of people and clinical leadership to help us drive forward a operating model for our organisation. That was that buzzword at the moment, but really important, inclusive, i.e. taking the citizen, patient, as well as our staff right across the boundaries many boundaries within the NHS, with us on a journey that developed a deep capability about handling data, and then really importantly, being really focused in on problem statements to help us bring that data to life in a way that was valuable both to our patients and our staff. So what does that all mean? What does that manifest itself in? So this is going back about 7 or 8 years. We recognised that there was significant harms happening in healthcare. And those harms could range anything from a bruised toe to death. And what we recognised in the organisation was that we could probably do better on reducing those harms that are happening to our patients. And we made a significant call. We went public and said, we are harming X hundreds of patients every month, and we could avoid some of that harm if we worked together better. And a specific example was about heart attacks in hospital. People might think that ill people will suffer heart attacks because you are more fragile and more under stress when you're in the care of a hospital. And that's just one of those things. Well, by the combination of using the data that we had around patients, visualising it and getting it into solutions for our caregivers, we found that in 3 years we managed to reduce the heart attacks in our wards by 50%. We're actually now in a position where we don't have any heart attacks on our wards that are avoidable. That's a really significantly different position. And we've got lots of examples of using data, using it digitally, together with the people question, really effective leadership, really effective continuous improvement, to deploy, to embed, and to enable our people to work together collaboratively to deliver some really good results. That eventually led to us being nominated as one of the relatively few global digital exemplars within the NHS. And now, together with our partners, we continue to forge forward where we are recognised nationally and internationally as a forward-thinking set of group of partners who are doing things that I guess push boundaries within a care model that's focused around the citizen as opposed to the hospital.
Amazing. That's quite exciting and inspirational, to be honest, to hear, because it's not something that we would often think, oh, we're going to talk about the economy and innovation, and we think health in hospitals, but it absolutely is such a key part. Healthy people create healthy workers, create healthy businesses, and the whole thing is connected. So it's so important personally that that's part of that conversation. So that's really great. Thank you very much for that. We'll go over to Professor Helen Marshall next, if that's all right. The University of Salford is undergoing a really exciting campus redevelopment at the moment, which includes the embracing of digital technology and a real-world approach to learning, which is just so important, for creating our students and our people of the future. How will this shape the future way in which industry and academia work together to drive inclusive growth locally in Salford and even wider?
Thanks. Well, we don't call it the campus development, we call it the Crescent.
Excellent.
Because we want to see it as part of the wider community. And what we're doing is building facilities that blur the lines between teaching, research and industry, so that the facilities are very industry focused, not academic focused. So at the moment, we've got 3 builds actually in progress. The one is a big science and engineering and environment building, and we're looking at labs and facilities in there that actually reflect where the students might be in 3 years' time in their industry roles. So the labs are not traditional academic labs. They're much more like factories. They're much more like productive, automated production lines, all that kind of thing. So that's happening. We're also building the Northern Robotics Centre, which is a centre to work with SMEs. So if there's an SME that's got 20 employees, needs to employ more people because they've got growth opportunities but can't actually afford to do that, how do we improve their productivity by creating a robotic function for them and allowing them to continue 20 employees but actually improve their productivity? So where they come along with the problem, we come up with the solution within that robotics centre. And then the third build at the moment is Energy House, which is looking both at new build and retrofit, both domestic and commercial, to make sure that we can not only become an effective digital economy, but we can become a green digital economy, and that our carbon emissions get as close to zero as we can possibly get them. So we've got fantastic builds going on in the university, which are what I call demand-led. So the university's strategy is industry collaboration, and we have a saying at Salford: industry collaboration is everything we do and the way we do everything. So it's not about Professor Jones coming up with a great idea. It's about us talking to industry partners and saying, okay, we've got an idea in this space. What do you need from the graduates in 3 years' time? So that we can actually design the program alongside you. And skills pipeline, particularly in digital industry 4.0 areas, and we're talking about a range of different things here, from robotics to cybersecurity to automated production, driverless vehicles, we could go on forever. How do we get that pipeline of skills, particularly in Greater Manchester and Salford? And we've just created something called the Greater Manchester Institute for Advanced Technical Skills, which will be offering HNDs to students, because discussions with employers during the time we've been developing degree apprenticeships, yes, we need degree apprentices, we need people to do the degrees through an apprenticeship, but actually we need these as well. And when we've drilled down and understood what these are, it is what Boris Johnson calls the missing middle, the HNDs, particularly in Industry 4.0. So we will open our first tranche of courses this coming September, and we will significantly grow that for September 22. The other thing we're doing around the Crescent Master Plan is the Innovation District. And we've now badged that at the university, and we're calling it the Collision Zone. And the reason that we've given it that brand is we want to collide research, industry asks and industry ideas with learning and teaching. So when students come to Salford and do their degrees, they don't do their final year dissertation sat in the library reading books. We will ask industry to come along with a live problem, a live brief. And the student's dissertation is going to be going away and researching a solution and a way forward with that live brief. And they will do a Dragon's Den type presentation to both the academic colleagues and industry colleagues to demonstrate what their research and their solution is. So it's real world stuff. We've done some of that already. And the really interesting thing is the number of our students who have done that kind of Dragon's Den presentation, who before they leave the building have been offered a role and a job by the industry partners. Because the industry partners can see these people are ready to go and ready to hit the ground running. Now, the opportunity around Salford at the moment in this innovation triangle is huge. And what we've got to do is now start really nailing those opportunities to the ground. My ambition is for Salford to become the Silicon Valley of the UK in this digital innovation triangle. And I think that is seriously, seriously possible. So that's where we are with the university. And the Crescent Master Plan is driven by our industry collaboration. We're not building a building and thinking, well, that's a very nice building. What are we going to put in there? We know what we want, and we know we want to design it industry-led so that they are mirror images of what the students will get when they go out to work.
Excellent. I have to say, it makes me want to go back to university again. I'm not going to lie. No, that sounds really exciting. And I couldn't agree more with how we prepare students for the future is about preparing them for what the future is going to hold and what skills we need there. It's not about burying our heads in textbooks anymore. It's what do employers need and actually what are they excited about, and let's get them involved. It's all that energy, we need to put it somewhere, and I think putting it towards creating the next Silicon Valley sounds like a very good goal for us all. Thank you very much for that. We'll come over to Stephen next then. So Stephen, MediaCity UK's Phase 2 expansion is currently underway after over 10 years of achieving great success in Phase 1. What does Phase 2 have in store for us and for the Salford Innovation Triangle?
Afternoon. I think what's going to be interesting with this is that you're going to hear common tones from everybody. So I think what this is the Innovation Triangle is a huge collaboration between a range of stakeholders across Salford and beyond in GM. It's a really interesting time for us. You know, believe it or not, we're coming up to 10 years since the first programmes made here first became operational. We've seen some fantastic content come out of here, which has redefined what this area of Salford is about. We're in an area of change. This used to be, we sat at what used to be docks, you know, one of the most innovative times, and it's progressed through, and we're continuing to see that growth. So what are we going to see going forward is a continued evolution that aligns the industry requirements and society's requirements with the right cocktail mix of people and institutions that can drive that forward. Before this, I was looking back through our document that sort of had a vision for MediaCity in 2004. And somebody who, I have to admit, is not me, because obviously somebody brighter than I am at marketing, had adopted the explosion of creativity. We're going to create a place where there could be an explosion of creativity. And through that, you can continue to grow, innovate, and evolve. Our role here is to create the place people want to be, the environment they want to grow in, and such like. So whether that is the best connected environment, so you know we are accredited externally as one of the best connected places in Europe, whether it's a place where it was a magnet for talent and aligns itself with some of the greatest talent providers that Helen's just spoken about and Tom spoke about, that talent pool and talent base, it will come here. Whether it's some of the greatest industry partners, we've got BBC, we've got ITV, we've got Kellogg's and all sorts of other people here. We've got Host yourselves here, which we can touch on later about how great they are. But we've got 250 smaller companies here all working together to grow the next great innovation and entrepreneurial side. Whether it's the amenity and environment, it's all about place-based. You know, where do people want to be? Particularly at the moment, I think it's interesting. It's sort of sunny today, and if you were to go out on the MediaCity Piazza now, you'll see that in a safe way, there are families there, there are people there. They are voting with, actually, this environment, this amenity is where I would like to be. And that drives that real density and concentration of people. And therefore, the funders will come alongside that to look at it. You know, we'll work with yourself at Host and in other environments to put accelerator and incubator programs together, which are pertinent. We've just finished running the Connected Cities one. We've done Future of Health, the cyber security. So all this lot, which is very pertinent to the modern world, is what you will see happen at MediaCity. You know, our ethos is very strong. So Helen touched on the built environment side. So smart cities and connected places are very strong to us. We've got the largest cluster of net zero buildings here in MediaCity. We have a social value approach, which is really about giving back to that community and trying to pick up where Tom was about saying, how do we get the opportunities here to be pertinent to the people of Salford as well as the wider GM that can generally drive that? That will pick up Raj's points about how do we drive health and well-being through it? How do we create an environment that's health and well-being in there? So all those put together with the cocktail that we try to put together. We will continue to do that. Okay, so we've obviously got a bedrock in content, but content, creativity, and technology. We're seeing the emerging smart city, smart building, smart environment, immersive content, esports, cyber, all this lot, which is all coming through, which is driven by that talent pool and that skill base, which Helen's spoken about, coming through. We will continue to grow. We're widely documented as saying, look, we're going to double size in 10 years. Well, do you know what? That's the start of our ambitions. You know, look at the next 20, 30, 40 years beyond that, and we will, these nodes together will continue to work together, work closely together, and create the environment, which, you know, I'm not a visionary, so some of us don't know what the environment is that will be needed in 10 years' time, but sure as heck, we'll create it between us, and that will be the place that grows, and it will become globally renowned as the place to be, the place to come, the place to innovate.
Excellent, great. And I know even myself, I immigrated here 5 years ago, and I remember coming out to MediaCity then and thinking, what's going on here? And to now be working here, it almost seems a bit surreal at how much that's grown just in that small time. And you can just feel there's a buzz of something going on. So
The buzz and the energy and the desire and
Yeah.
drive, but then that collaborative working, do not underestimate the collaborative working, whether it's coming from the academic side or it's coming from the industry side. It's both fundamentally important to what we will see grow here.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that. So we've got some questions coming in live, which is always really great to get the panel at home involved. So we've got one through, and I think, Helen, this might be best for yourself, but I think we can all get involved. Do you think that innovation and technology should be introduced into the school curriculum? Now, I know you've already commented on this, about how integral this really is. So I think people at home are clearly thinking about how do we get actually innovation involved in education earlier, even before university, and part of all those conversations.
I actually think that's very important, because it's quite interesting when we do our sessions from the university in the schools and talk to them about our programmes. There are some titles that the school kids don't think, what's that about? Because they don't know about it. And I think getting them introduced as early as possible to things like artificial intelligence, big data, cybersecurity, which are the topics of the future, is going to be really important. And one of the things we're looking to do at Salford Uni, when we're allowed out again, is to have Wednesday afternoon school visits to enable those students to go and play in our laboratories, to experiment with some of these interesting areas so that they can become used to what the whole thing looks like. But I think it is important that we infiltrate not necessarily as hard examinable subjects, but that students within the schools are introduced at an early age, and I mean an early age, I mean 6 and 7, I don't mean 15 and 16, to these technologies, Industry 4.0, digital-led technologies, because by the time they leave school and get into university and leave university and get into jobs, the world will have changed probably 4 times. So absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Even just thinking about when you each had your first cell phone, what a different world we're living in right now, or your own iPad, or all those sorts of things. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, I think Helen's absolutely right, and I'd completely support the infiltration of the curriculum in schools, as she put it on this issue. But I think, taking your analogy, Bella, we all remember the days before smartphones. We all remember the days of Nokia's dominance of the market. We all remember the days of strapping a brick to our belt and carrying a wiggly wire around with us to make the thing work in a car. And I think what's really important about this is that has a message in it about innovation, but it also has a really important message about the adaptability of markets and of education and of adults to all of those worlds of the future. And for me, it's just as important that we also infiltrate the retraining curriculum for the whole labour market in this regard. And I think you've only got to use Raj's example of how fundamentally important digital innovation, digital tech, and digital-led medical practice and precision medicine is to the future of surgery and of healthcare across the country and across the globe, really, to understand that, that is as much about retraining and equipping working age adults in the labour market now as it is about the new entrants to the labour market. So this, for me, I think is a very much a whole economy approach, and that's where I think the inclusive side of this comes in, as Steve and others have mentioned, that it's very, very important that we, in taking the whole community with us on that journey, the opportunities are there for people who are currently in the labour market who might be doing very, very different jobs in the future. We all know, we are experiencing multiple career transitions throughout our working lives in longer, healthier, we hope, touch wood, working lives these days. And we've got to equip the labour market for that future. So absolutely digital at the heart of the school-age curriculum, but absolutely it has to be part of our retraining approach for all people across the local economy, I would say.
Definitely. Thank you for that. We've got another question in. Beyond Salford, what does the Salford Innovation Triangle signal or mean for the rest of the UK? What opportunities does this actually present for the government? So I don't know if, Stephen, do you want to come in on that one?
Oh, heck, political one for me. I think it's pretty well documented, the Oxford-Cambridge piece and the life sciences side. Well, I think what what Salford Innovation Triangle does is a counterbalance that addresses the skills and underlying skills of the area that can be a real growth engine for UK as well as GM as well as Salford in there as well. So I think it's really important that makes it appreciated, understood, and we articulate it properly, that it is of national and international significance here, and allows a proposition which really can be supported because it's underpinned by skills, talent here as well. So I'd like to see it being viewed alongside the other strong innovation centres within the UK as a very viable option.
Absolutely, definitely. Thank you.
Can I give a comment?
Go for it.
So I think Salford as part of GM offers an opportunity for government to invest in a way that they'll get a far higher rate of return, firstly directly to the populations that are in Greater Manchester, but also in developing solutions that can be applicable in many other parts of the country, if not the world. There's not many places that have as a population that's roughly 3 million, level of diversity, levels of deprivation, as well as skills and education. That's like Greater Manchester. I call it a big laboratory. It's obviously a lot more than that, but it's a great place to invest because of that potential to get those greater rate of returns. And again, to quote the Prime Minister, it will be on the levelling up agenda. So why wouldn't you come to Salford and GM?
Absolutely. Yeah, I know it's kept me here, so it's got a lot of good things to say for, hasn't it? Definitely. We've got another question in. What are the barriers that we're going to have to collectively overcome to make the Salford Innovation Triangle a success? So what are those things that we're going to have to navigate that might present themselves as a challenge? I don't know if anyone has any thoughts.
Happy to give that a shot, Bella, to start with. I mean, I think the obvious challenge is the climate for recovery on the back of the COVID pandemic, and we all understand that in our own organisations. We understand that for the economy at large, and we understand it as well in terms of patterns of consumer behaviour and how sustainable that recovery and that consumer behaviour is going to be over the short term versus the medium term. So COVID, absolutely. I think there is also, combined with what Raj and Steve have both just said about the Innovation Triangle representing a very, very real, very tangible, investable proposition, if you like, for government, for the private sector alike. We've got to stay on the front foot with that. Let's not make any secret of the fact that this area of GM, although it's one of the forerunners, I would say, nationally for investable propositions in the innovation space in the country, is competing nationally, it's competing internationally, and everybody has to stay, I think, agile in terms of making sure that competitiveness doesn't become a barrier, and we support both the marketing of that, but also the very kind of granular detail of how we're taking forward the individual component parts, how we're deliberately chasing occupiers, how we're fully diversifying the offer, I think, across the board. And then I think the final thing is that whole inclusion agenda that we've all spoken about. And I think what's really exciting about this opportunity is not just the fact that it's delivered over the last 15 to 20 years in a really transformational way for GM, but it's got that real potential to make a kind of indelible imprint, I would say, on inclusive economics in practice for the UK. And that's not just for GM, but it is for the UK as it should be, to really make a mark about rebalancing, levelling up and really extending that opportunity. And I think, as you can see from the comments that a number of us have made on the panel already today, there is a really strong underlying commitment to that in the partnership, and a seriousness of intent about us leaving a proper legacy for people in Salford and GM and beyond on that. And we mustn't allow that to become a barrier. We mustn't allow apologies for inaction in terms of connecting those growth opportunities to residents to become an afterthought. If we make that front and centre as part of our agenda, I think we'll have a much, much stronger chance of success with the whole project over the medium to long term.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's great. We've got another question in here. How can we attract and, most importantly, retain talent in Salford to make the Salford Innovation Triangle a sustainable success? So how do we keep people around?
I think, and we touched on slightly earlier about making places. Salford is a really, really fantastic place. I mean, Tom will know the actual numbers better than I do, but in terms of greenery, open space, health and well-being, quality of housing stock, connectivity, all those things which are really driving people want to be in places, Salford has in abundance. We could probably do a shouting about it a little bit more, to be perfectly honest, because it's a fantastic place to be. The Innovation Triangle will connect those with job opportunities and career opportunities. I think one of the most important things is there used to be a time when you could have a job in Salford or Manchester, but you probably had to go to London for a career. That's not anymore. You can now have your career here, a very viable, strong career with multiple occupiers, and the Innovation Triangle will have a huge part to play in continuing to grow that and grow the opportunity. And then in a way, why wouldn't you want to stay here? You start to ask the question of why would I leave? And I think that we're on the cusp of getting to that point now. I think, but it's not one single point. It's a whole mix and cocktail of things here.
Absolutely. I think we've mentioned the word a couple of times. It's the opportunity. How do we keep making those opportunities available? And if someone wants to retrain, I think we spoke about that as well. You don't have to retrain just because your industry might be in a bit of a decline. You can retrain because actually you found something that you're more interested in. So how do we keep creating those opportunities for people so that, as you've said, you don't get sucked down south, you get to stay here? Sorry.
Yeah, but I think part of what Helen was saying, actually, she might want to say a bit more about it. At the level of industry collaboration between the university, particularly in Salford, is part of, I think, the attraction, combined with all of the residential growth and so on we've seen of, we're finally becoming one of those cities that doesn't suffer the infamous brain drain where young people, come here to go to university and then disappear and never come back. And I think that's a really strong part of that collaboration that Salford University has really been part of.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we're seeing very much is that students who graduate from the university are getting jobs within the Greater Manchester region, partly, or I think mainly, because of the amount of industry engagement they get during their degree programmes. And that's a very long job interview. So their engagement with different organisations, and it's usually one or two throughout their 3 years, means that at the end of it, that industry partner can look at them and think, yeah, we'd quite like to have you because you get us and you get what industry requires. And we're seeing at Salford Uni, our retention of graduates within the Greater Manchester region is very high nationally. And that's great. And, it's a fantastic place to live. I mean, Salford's a fantastic place to live. Greater Manchester, the opportunities. And just the countryside, the Peak District, the Lake District, a little bit around us. Why not?
Absolutely. I like that. I'm going to use that. Why not? Absolutely. Raj.
Just to add one further thing to the colleagues, and that's, I'll use this example. We can attract and retain for a long time skilled staff at a really short supply who could double their salaries if they go somewhere else. So why is it that they stay? I think it's got something to do with the value construct or the value mindset that there is in this area. People want to have purpose, a meaning in their lives just as much as they'd want a good career and a good salary. And you get it here. There's a real social fabric that you can link into and actually see the contributions you make at work impact on real people.
Absolutely. Yeah. Couldn't agree more with that point. It's the values and wanting to see that change become a reality. And I think we kind of said before that I'll use your laboratory example. This is a perfect laboratory to try new things, see it happen, see it come, to fruition, and be able to shout about it actually to the rest of the world, which not many places do we get that opportunity to have that playground, I'll call it. Absolutely. I've got one last question that's come in. I think it's quite an interesting one, and we've actually touched upon it quite a bit when we've been talking about inclusivity. But if we have people who are at home watching this and thinking, I don't work in tech at all at the moment. My business is not in technology or in digital. What does this actually potentially mean for me? So I might own a gym, down in Swinton, as an example. Why should I be excited about the Salford Innovation Triangle?
Well, I can't resist that one, really, Bella. I mean, I think it's because it represents the whole future of the whole economy. And that's it's easy to say. It's complicated to kind of decouple that and explain it in practice. But I think you have to look at the partners represented here as a start for 10. We're not just talking about digital, tech, gaming, production, the weird, wacky, whizzy industries of the future that are, a large part of the Media City environment. We're talking about the hospital. We're talking about the city council and the local authority. We're talking about people who run operational services at the Salford Royal. We're talking about social workers. We're talking about street cleaners. I would much rather imagine a future where all of those people who see those occupations and how those occupations will change in the future, enabled by digital. As we all know, we're using it in how we program our waste collection rounds. We're using it in how we communicate in social work teams. We're using it all the way through to all of the things that Raj can describe better than me at the hospital. If those people are able to participate in a skills program run through Host, and an entry-level opportunity at Media City that takes them onto a public service career, I think that's the inclusive economy in practice, and that for me is a major success. And all of the anecdotes that I've heard over the years and since arriving in Salford where people say, there isn't a job for me other than a cleaning job at Media City, we are here to debunk that myth, and we are here to show that this is about the role of digital, of innovation, of creativity and imagination in the jobs and economies of the future, but it's about the whole foundational economy, including all of those represented here. It's not just about digital and tech careers, it's about the use of those skills in how jobs and professions are going to constantly change, evolve and adapt, and it's here for everybody in the city.
Absolutely. Helen?
And I think, just to add a couple of points, I think we need to look at the art of the possible, not the art of the impossible, because the possible is fantastic. Let me just give you one example. So that owner of the gym, at the moment there's a person with an artificial wooden leg who would like to go and do a lot of gym exercise, but there's certain things that they can't do. We have a department of prosthetics and orthotics at Salford, and they're working with our robotics people to actually make robotic false limbs. So if someone comes along to their gym with a robotic false limb, they can do a heck of a lot more in their gym than they would with a non-robotic false limb. And so the digital economy, if you like, goes across a whole range of different areas, from health all the way through to automated production, driverless vehicles, a whole lot. And I think we've got to all get together on this and look at the art of the possible.
Absolutely. No, and just think about where, exactly as you said, where could we apply what we're doing in different contexts and see what comes out of that. And I think something that you've kind of all touched upon is, it's about the partnership and us all working together and really it's something that I'm quite proud of coming from Host is it's about creating that community so that if we have someone working on that interesting technology and they know someone who's got a problem and actually we've got someone here who wants to go and find a solution, let's connect that up and explore the art of the possible actually, because that's when we can create some really, really interesting stuff. Actually, I think, Raj, the example you came up with giving us that history of the Northern Care Alliance is exactly that. We've got a challenge here. How can we think differently about how we solve that challenge? Absolutely. So we've being signaled that we've got 2 minutes left. So what we'll do in our last 2 minutes is we'll just go down the line and sort of touching upon what are you most excited about, I suppose, looking towards the future when we talk about the Salford Innovation Triangle, so we can leave everyone off with what they have the most excited to be about. Stephen, are we all right to start with you?
And I think it sort of resounds what I've said previously. We've created the place, we've created the infrastructure and that will tie into the local economy and create the opportunity where I don't know what the outturn of it will be, but it's sure going to be exciting and it'll be something that's great to be involved in.
Absolutely, thank you.
How can I add to that? Well, I guess what I'm most excited about is the fact that I can envision colleagues who spent most of their time in the hospital working in places like this, inventing stuff that's quickly out there with the people that they're serving. It's going to be great stuff.
Absolutely. Tom?
Yeah, I think, there's a lot to be excited about, but I think fundamentally it's being excited about the council not having to lead all of this and working with fantastic people that are full of full of energy, ambition, and at the heart of organisations with equally fantastic people who are all up for this. And I think that strength in partnership is a fundamentally important part of this. And above all, I think the big opportunity and the most important thing to be excited about is we can deliver this for real people and real communities across the city and beyond. And that's what inclusive economics is all about, as we've all said. And I think we've got a great chance to really make our mark with that. So very, very excited about that for the future.
Absolutely. Helen?
I think over the last few years, we've built the platform and we're now ready to launch. And I think in the post-COVID economy, people talk about the challenges of the post-COVID economy. And at Salford Uni, what we're talking about are the opportunities. Because instead of worrying about all the things that have challenged us in COVID, let's look at all the things we've learnt. Because we've learnt about working in very different ways. And let's pick those up and run with them. So I think we're on a platform and ready to launch.
Excellent. Oh, that's great. Well, that's all the time that we have. So thank you, first of all, very much for all of our panelists for coming here today. This has been, if anything, extremely exciting. So I'm so excited to be a part of it. And I think it's great to hear about what we all can look forward to. Thank you to everyone at home who's watching and sent in their questions. It's been incredibly interesting to learn more about the Salford Innovation Triangle. And I think we've got a lot to look forward to. So thank you.